Live from Utah's Wasatch Front, the pulse of the Mountain West, where the issues that shape your life meet the truth that sets you free. Across Utah, across the Republic, and around the world, welcome. This is KMMU.
Okay, hey everybody, it's Goud. Hold on, I have to figure out how to do this right. There we go. Okay, I'm here. Welcome to the Goud Crowd. I'm your host, Goud, and we do not have a producer this week, so if things are a little bit choppy, I apologize. The producer decided to go on Thanksgiving break a little bit early, and we wish him the best Thanksgiving ever. Anyway, okay. So today we will have on Mike Carey. He should come in around 5:30, where we'll discuss Utah's housing market. I think the conversation will be really interesting for those of you at home. And also Brandy will be coming in to do a segment of the Back Home with Brandy. It looks like it'll be interesting. I'm not 100% sure what she's going to talk about, but I have a couple of images that should give me a sense of what it is about. So anyway, I want to start by talking about, also, sorry, one more thing. You're listening to KMMU.org. We would love it if you would like and share the show. That helps us to get more audience members. And today, because we don't have a producer, if you want to ask questions of anybody, if you have any comments, just write them in the comments on the video, and I'll be able to see those live. Or if you want, you can also call my cell phone. So the number is actually it's in the bottom of the screen there. So it's 385-237-7960. If you do that, I'll just have to hold it up to the microphone. Okay, I want to start by talking about socialism, because this has been getting me really worked up. Let me share this post with you guys. This week, our very useless Republican majority Congress, they passed a resolution. They passed a resolution denouncing the horrors of big government socialism. Okay, according to Speaker Johnson, socialism causes famines, it destroys families, etc. While I agree with this, I think we should stop doing these types of performative acts. This is a total waste of time. But also, what's really bothering me is that this is not recognizing the reality of where we are as a nation, and it is sending the wrong message to voters. So right now, and actually here's the message it's sending. It's sending the message that we are a free market system and that we're not socialist. That's the message that people are taking away from this, when the reality is that we are a socialist country. I am sorry to say it, but we are so far from free markets that constantly passing these stupid resolutions makes voters think that we are not socialist. And in reality, the biggest problem we have in every single aspect of our lives, besides immigration, is government. So I went through and I was looking at the amount of money that is spent on the amount of money that we spend tax-wise. So how much does the federal government spend? How much do local governments spend? So the federal government is spending over $7 trillion a year. That's their budget. It's over more than $7 trillion. And that includes everything. So that's Social Security payments, which is, I think that's a little bit different, but then you've got defense, then you got all the welfare payments, you've got farm programs, you have food stamps, you've got grants to universities, student loan programs, all sorts of things. They're involved in many, many industries across the US. They are driving up costs and they are destroying the country. And they're causing it. So basically what's happened, I think at this point, is that if you're not receiving a subsidy, right, you are at a huge disadvantage, because the people that are receiving subsidies are getting cheaper goods and they are driving up the cost for everybody else that's trying to work hard and make a living. and it's making it harder to live in the US. Now, on top of the $7 trillion that the federal government spends, local, state, and local governments spend another $5 trillion. Or actually, I'm sorry, $4 trillion. So that is $11 trillion a year. I mean, these numbers are like crazy. Spent by government. Our economy in 2025 is expected to be a $27 trillion economy. That means that 40% of our economy is government. Just let that sink in. 40% is government, and they're involved in all sorts of industries, and they are dominating those industries, and they are completely they're changing the pricing structures. They're driving up the costs, and they're making life unaffordable. So, for example, housing, right? The housing market is completely government driven. They give out subsidies to certain people and not others. They give out subsidies. There's even subsidies, by the way, for rental housing. So the federal government gives subsidies for people to build rental housing that is then subsidized for certain people that get the opportunity to get that. But other people, if you don't get that, you're not benefiting from any of these subsidies at all. And then we've also got things like Section 8, which is setting these floors on the prices of rent. So let's just say that you have a lot of rental units that won't move anymore. The normal thing would be for landlords to drop their prices to attract tenants because they don't want to have just empty buildings out there. That never happens though, because we're constantly subsidizing everything and driving up the cost. So the people that get the Section 8 housing, they benefit from having the voucher, but then the normal everyday people, they get nothing. They get nothing out of this. Okay, so then universities is another on the housing thing. In addition to that, the government completely controls the mortgage market. They're setting they can set whatever requirements they want because they go and they backstop all the mortgages and they make it so that more people can buy homes. But a lot of times they're people that shouldn't be buying homes because they're not actually qualified, right? They're not saving the money they need for a down payment, and then they can't afford it. And now with housing prices actually going down, you're going to set these people up so that as that happens, and if something happens to them, like they lose their job or something, it's not worth it for them to keep paying the mortgage and stay in the house. You set them up for failure. Okay, so the next thing is, let's say the university system, totally government dominated. We've got student loans like guaranteed in the tens of thousands of dollars a year. And university tuition rates have gone up to soak up the full amount of the possible loan you can get every single year. That's government driving up the cost of universities. In addition, they give billions of dollars of grants to these universities, so they can study things like, I don't know. I think one that I heard a few years ago is, why are lesbians morbidly obese? That was literally like a study. I don't really think you need a study for that, but yeah, I can tell you why. Because there's no men involved in that relationship. Men are what make people, either women or men who are attracted to men, whichever one, be skinny. That's how that works. Okay, so if you don't have men involved, no need to be skinny. Okay, so then healthcare, the healthcare industry, totally government subsidized, right? They subsidize insurance, they subsidize insurance companies, they subsidize hospitals. What's the end effect? Costs are skyrocketing. The outcomes are worse, of course. And they can control everything, like how much they can control whether you get services, whether you're able to get treatment. So there's even the control piece that's problematic on top of the cost. So we have them now being involved in all sorts of aspects of our economy. And Congress goes and passes these resolutions about socialism without acknowledging that we have the problem here. Like, why can't we actually solve the actual socialism problem in the US? I think that Trump went in with this mandate to do actual transformational change. And I got to say, I'm so disappointed because I don't think they did it. All they did is they focused on one bill, the big, beautiful bill. They didn't do the type of radical change that people want. They want a life that is affordable again, but affordable without government subsidies. Nobody wants government subsidies, except for Nate Bluin, who apparently loves to collect food stamps. So I guess that's my point here is that we have allowed the government to get out of control. And I think Trump went in with a great mandate, but then he hasn't actually acted on it. And that's the problem that I see. And I think we may have lost the opportunity to do it because the high point after he won was like that first 6 months to a year, right? Where he's at his peak before the elections just happened, where Democrats, well, I gotta be honest, I think there's some questions about New Jersey and Virginia because turnout is really bizarrely high for Democrats. People need to ask questions in those states. Those of us in Utah, we got to focus on Utah. I'm not really going to go looking in New Jersey and Virginia. Hopefully people out there are taking a look to figure out how Democrats caused the number of their voters to spike to all-time highs. I just don't really think that happened. But having said that, they took all of these races and they flipped all sorts of seats. So now Trump is not at his peak anymore, right? The Republicans are like, oh, well, he's not going to help us. He's, he's like he's a weight that's negative for us. And so that's what I'm kind of, I guess, we needed that transformational change. We need to get the government out of stuff. We need Congress to stop doing performative BS and instead to tackle the problems that are at hand, move towards free market solutions, actual free market solutions. Otherwise, we're not going to preserve our system. The reality is, if the Democrats win, it's my view, in 2026, I think Trump's going to get impeached again. Obviously, that's all these people do. The Republicans never respond in kind, if you notice, because we tend to elect feckless loser beta males for Republicans. The Democrats don't do that. They actually elect, and I admire them for this, they elect real warriors who will go in there and they will take it to the mat every single fight, and they fight to win. They fight to win for their voters. Our guys don't do that at all. They do what Burgess Owens does. We voted on socialism being bad, and you're like, what did that help? We have socialism. And again, my point is this: you're sending a message that we are a free market system, which means that voters are going to look around and they're going to say, hey, housing costs a ton. This is ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, there must be the free market. Healthcare costs are out of control. It must be the free market. If you know anything, though, the healthcare is not connected to a free market at all. Universities are so expensive. It must be the free market. There's nothing free market about the university system. I don't even think our food costs are free market anymore, because they have the food stamps, the SNAP, the EBT, like all these programs that are setting a floor underneath the prices. If they're not able to move product, they will drop the prices. That's how this works. But now we've set all these systems in place to make that never happen. And under this weird theory that deflation is bad, that's what economists will tell you. Hey, you guys, deflation is really, really bad. You don't want deflation. Yes, we do. I want deflation. Although I'll also say this. I think we also want wages to increase. But before I get to that, let me just make this quick point. So right now, the way the system is set up, it's not a free market system. And so doing these types of performative things like what they did here is not actually a positive for our country. It makes voters believe that we have a free market system that we don't have. And they're going to blame that for the problems. And instead of looking to conservatives for answers, well, I mean, look, the Republican majority Congress hasn't provided any answers. They're going to go and look to the left for those answers and say, look, the free market system that we have in the US failed. We want to go towards socialism. This is where this is all heading. And you can pass your stupid performative BS resolutions like this, Burgess, but it would have been better if you had actually used your majority to make real material changes and transformational changes to get rid of the things that the government is doing to drive up the cost of living in the US. I would say most of the cost of living that's going on, the increases are because of government. whether it is their printing money that caused massive inflation, right? That was one thing that was going on. I think it's still going on to some degree, or all the subsidies that set the floor underneath prices so that as demand falls, the prices don't fall in tandem. Okay, so then I saw this article today, and I think it's worth kind of looking at, because what this guy talks about is kind of what we're talking about right now. So let me show this to you. And what he's basically saying in this thing is we are not measuring the poverty level correctly. And I will tell everybody, I think everybody should go and read this article. I really thought it was very well done. So let me share it. Let me make sure I show the right thing. I always get scared about this. Okay. So I just highlighted some stuff I thought was kind of helpful. So he said, the way that our poverty line is calculated is 3 times the cost of a minimum food diet in 1963 adjusted for inflation. So 3 times the minimum food budget. Okay. In 1963, when this was created, families spent about 1/3 of their income on food at home. That's all. I mean, that's a lot. That is really a lot. And so it was more realistic. This is what the guy writes, to actually use that as a basis for determining the poverty line. But at the time that this happened, he says the floor made sense because housing was relatively cheap. A family could rent a decent apartment or buy a home on a single income. Healthcare was provided by employers and cost relatively little. Blue Cross coverage averaged $10 a month. Childcare didn't really exist as a market. Mothers stayed home. Family helped, or neighbors who likely had someone home watched each other's kids. Cars were affordable if prone to breakdowns. With few luxury frills, the neighborhood could fix most problems when they did. And kids in vocational technology school, sorry. So when cars broke down, people could fix them. College tuition could be covered with a summer job. Retirement meant a pension income, not a pile of 401k assets you had to fund yourself. So you can see, this is not a reflection of what things look like today at all. So then, so now the composition of household spending transformed completely. In 2024, food at home is no longer 33% of household spending. For most families, it's 5 to 7%. So you can see that if you triple that, you're not really getting an accurate reading of what the poverty rate is in the US. You're actually getting a number that's not reflective of the actual things that we're spending money on. So then he said, housing now consumes 35 to 45% of people's income. Healthcare takes 15 to 25%. Childcare for families with young children can eat up 20 to 40% of their income. A lot of times, I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the value is of having both people in a couple work if they have kids, if it's for a marginal dollar amount of increase in your actual take-home pay after the daycare costs. It might sound bad, but I think the reality of this is you really have to start thinking about, is it worth me being exhausted and irritable with my children so that we can get an extra $1,000 a month? I don't have kids, I can't, but to me, it doesn't seem like it's worth it. But so then this guy says, if you measured income inadequacy today, the threshold for a family of 4 wouldn't be $31,200. It would be somewhere between $130,000 and $150,000. And then he said actually, if you updated this to reflect current spending patterns, it's actually probably around $140,000 a year. So in 2024, the official poverty line for a family of 4 is $31,200, which, if you think about that, I don't even know how anyone lives off that income. The median household income is roughly $80,000. So it's still below the 130 he said earlier that would be the poverty rate. We've been told implicitly that a family earning $80,000 is doing fine, safely above poverty, solidly middle class, perhaps comfortable. But what he now sets forth is that that's actually not accurate, that you're not comfortable. And you can kind of see some of the expenses here. They've talked about these national averages. I mean, childcare at $32,000 a year for 2 kids is wild. That's a lot. Housing at $23,000, food $14,000, transportation another 14 grand, healthcare $10,000, other essentials $21,000. So your required net income is $118,000, and then you've got your federal, state, and FICA taxes of roughly $18,500, which means that you need $136,500. I don't know this $18,500 where he's getting that from for taxes, because you're talking like federal income taxes, state income taxes for most states, property taxes, sales taxes, vehicle taxes, gas taxes, food taxes. Taxes all over the place. Taxes, they steal all your money so they can give it to the people that they prefer to give it to. That's all taxation is about. It's not like they tell you it's about providing you services, but honestly, they don't really provide that many services for the amount of money that you're paying in taxes. That's just the reality of it. Most of that money is going to their friends and donors. So, but I think, one thing I was thinking about from the tax perspective is I think what this all shows is we are taxing people too much at this like 150 at these lower levels. Like we shouldn't even start taxing people probably until after we get above the 140,000 that he says would be really a reflection of today's expenses. So maybe this we could use things like this. I mean, this is just one article, so I don't want to overblow it, but like we should use things like this to think about how to change tax policy to be more reflective of trying to give people a leg up. And so I would say maybe all income under $150,000 should have no federal income tax, no FICA taxes, no state income taxes, no property taxes. And then you just move the burden to everything above that. I mean, honestly, I don't think you should have to pay property taxes anyway, but whatever. Okay, let me see if there's anything else I want to say in here. He goes, I would just encourage people to go and read this article. One of the things that I think this is an interesting point he makes too. He talks about this idea of being able to participate in the economy. So he says, like in 1955, you needed to have a telephone line to participate. The phone line cost $5 a month in 58, and today that would be $58 okay, a month. But the actual cost now of that participation ticket has gone up to $200 because it's totally different. In order to participate today, you need to have a cell phone and you need to have broadband internet at your house. And so even those they're telling you have all this great technology and everything's changed, but we're basically paying 4 times the amount that we were paying in the 50s for the exact same basically access that you have now. Some of these are healthcare. In 1955, Blue Cross family coverage was roughly $10 a month. Today, the average family premium is over $1,600 a month. In 1955, Social Security tax was 2% on the first $4,200 of income. The maximum annual contribution was only $84. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $96 a year today. It's actually, if you have the median income of $80,000, you're paying over $6,100 for your Social Security tax. Today, that's 6 times the inflation rate. In childcare, like he said, the cost was $0. Today, it's $32,000. I mean, and these are kind of those costs to participate in the economy. Then he goes on to talk about this idea that there's this kind of, there are these, they call them like valleys, where there's certain points of income where you're getting all these government subsidies, and then they just cut off all of a sudden. So like if you go from like $40,000 to $50,000, you got this great $10,000 raise, but then you lose all the subsidies for childcare. So now you're actually paying the full amount of childcare, and you actually end up poorer than if you had just stayed at the $40,000 level, right? And so that's something we got to think about. Like, how do you address that without? And like my own view is like we shouldn't have subsidies for all of this stuff, but we have them. And so how do you like make it so people get weaned off these without it discouraging them from trying to get off them, because they're actually going to poor at the end of the day? Because a rational person, I give people credit for this. Like if you're irrational and you say, hey, if I get $10,000 more dollars at work, I'm going to lose $30,000 in government benefits, and I'm actually now poorer than I was to begin with. I understand that a rational person said, this is a bad idea. I'm going to keep on just going at the $40,000 level. Well, I don't want that. I want you to keep moving up that income level so you eventually get off all the government subsidies. And honestly, I think you'll feel better, because I don't really think anybody wants government subsidies except for Nate Bluen. And you'll be able to, in the long run, hopefully increase your income exponentially so that you're in a better spot, especially as you head towards middle age and retirement. Okay. Yeah, and then he talks about like these families that kind of are on that cusp where at one level they have all these benefits, at the next they don't. Well, they don't like that because it makes them mad that their neighbor who's working less hard than them is actually living a better life because they're getting food stamps and they're getting all these subsidies that the family making $10,000 more is not getting. And it just seems extremely unfair. And I agree with that. That is unfair. And again, our goal should be that life is not so unaffordable that we have to give everybody subsidies. And so just to close this little segment out, what I'll say is this. What we actually need to focus on is salaries and income and how to get those to skyrocket, because they are not at the level they should be at, considering all the inflation that we have suffered through for the past, since really 2020, it's been really bad. Now, it's my view that it's been bad for years, but COVID really put it on a supercharge. And because of all the money printing, and it's really caused everything to just go haywire. But incomes have not gone up as much as costs. And I know, like when I worked at a private company, they were giving like 5% raises and inflation was like 10%, which meant I was making 5% less, right? And I remember thinking at the time, like, they're not even giving decent raises here. Like this is bad. But what it means, but the reason is, there's a reason for this. It's because, number one, they have H-1B visas that they're letting in by the hundreds of thousands a year. It's the illegal and legal immigration. All of this is driving wages down because we constantly have a flow of all these people coming in. They will work for less and their culture is compliant. They will just do what they are told. And so if we want to now cause wages to increase, we need a labor shortage. And the fastest way to get there is to cut immigration. So I would say cancel the H-1B program because it is a fraud. Cancel the OPT program. This is the program that lets student visas convert their student visa to a work visa and be able to stay in the US. I don't want you coming here from a foreign country to do a student visa and then staying. Like, if you want to come and do your little study thing, you need to go home. Like, we're not interested in you coming here and staying. Get out. So cancel the OPT program. And honestly, it's unfair competition to American kids that are going through college. Immigration crackdown on employers who are hiring illegals. I mean major crackdowns. Like, I want to see employers go to jail that are hiring illegals. And then I would say we need a complete immigration moratorium for a good 50 years. Like I said, we actually need to focus on Americans, causing our lives to get better and causing our incomes to start to skyrocket. You will only get there if you cause a labor shortage. And then you are forcing employers to have to pay higher wages. It's not going to happen as long as we have basically open borders in different forms, no matter what administration is in power. Okay, let's see. While we wait for Mike, let me show you. I have this. I want to show you guys this because this was just. I am wondering. So, they're doing this. The Republican Party is doing this initiative, and my initial feeling on it was that I'm not going to participate. But hold on. Let me play this for you. I got to figure out. Okay. Instagram. Okay, so I think this guy, I'm assuming he's
living in Utah. There are signature gatherers out and about gathering signatures for what is a repeal of Prop 4. Although if you talk to them, it doesn't sound like they know what they're out there gathering signatures for, and they may not be gathering it entirely honestly. So don't sign anything. Whatever you do, don't sign anything. There's no good ballot initiatives out there being collected right now. They may tell you that they're collecting signatures for something about the maps or to protect gerrymandering or something, but that's not true. They're not very well informed, and they need to get a lot of signatures, and they're not training their people very well. So if you see somebody out there gathering signatures, feel free to talk to them. Check and see what they're up to. Maybe even film them if they seem like they're doing something sketchy or not telling the truth. But more importantly, don't sign anything.
Okay. So, well, one thing is I just want to show you guys, like, the Democrats are really good at their public relations, their communications, at accomplishing the goal. They don't want Prop 4 to get repealed, and so you can see they're very smart. They're actually they're going at it here. Now, my initial feeling on this was I am not going to sign those initiative petitions, and the reason is that we still don't have full transparency about what happened in 2024 in the gubernatorial race. Okay, like, so that's my general feeling. Yeah, but I've been having this kind of different thought about it, and let me run this by you and see what you guys think. My thinking is that maybe we should sign it, and because what's going to happen is if the Republican Party gathers enough signatures to put the initiative on the ballot, these guys, so Eric Bigger or whatever his name is, and the other Democrats who I assume are part of this effort, they are going to turn around and they are going to sue and try to block the initiative. And I think that they will get into, like, were the signatures are legitimate? What were the signature gatherers telling people? How did you pay them? All the details. And so I feel like they will actually help us destroy the signature gathering path, because signature gathering path is full of fraud when it comes to these when it comes to elections and getting candidates on the ballot. That is my view of it, and I think it's borne out if you look at what happened in 2024. But if we could get the Democrats and whoever's funding this guy and all the other lefties that are posting about how you shouldn't sign the initiative petition, if we can get them to pay attorneys to go and do the work for us, isn't that like a great way of handling the problem? Let them do it, right? And then we're like, my friend, hold on, Brandy's here. It's a little early. Hold on. Let's let her in for a second. Hello.
Hi, Goud. Can you see me?
No, we can't see you, Brandy, but you're early, but let's just do it.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You said 6:30 my time.
Oh, did I? I meant 6:30 my time.
Yeah, there's an hour difference back home. Do you want me to come back in an hour?
No, it's all good. I don't know. We could do like 5 minutes, I think, because my call is actually, the next call is a little bit late. So we can go until Mike comes on.
All right. Hold on. Let me.
Okay.
Why aren't we seeing me?
I don't see you though. So we're gonna do Back Home with Brandy. This is our little segment where we talk about what's going on in my home state of Illinois. So she's basically giving us warnings about what happens when.
Oh, look.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh,
so
you
we
are
tried to do a
backwards.
Back Home with Brandy. Can you read it?
I can read it, but it is backwards. Let me unread.
Wait. Hold on, Goud.
Okay, you need your glasses on to see that's backwards?
No, I was going to read to you.
I like it. Okay.
We have technical difficulties.
Okay.
We're turning the camera off for 1 second. Hang on.
Okay.
I'm still here though.
Okay.
It's like Madonna. We're doing a quick wardrobe change or something.
No, I think she would do it on camera though.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
All right.
In her
Hang on.
heyday.
One more.
Hopefully not anymore. That'd be kind of weird. Should I share your photos that you have?
Well, give me a second. Now, what does this look like?
What? I just fixed it. I know I already fixed it. You guys. Okay, now it's back. Okay, we're good.
You mean you could turn the screen the whole time, Goud?
I turned it earlier,
You
Brandy.
should have started with that.
Okay, I was like,
you made us do all that work. All right, now I'll put my glasses on so we can get serious for the Back Home with Brandy. I wish I had good things to talk about, Goud. I really do. But I don't know if you've heard. On November 17th, which is a week ago now, did you hear about the tragic incident on the Blue Line?
Oh my God. Is this where the woman got burned?
Yes. So
Mhm.
I was going to talk about that really quick.
Okay.
Apparently, she was on the Blue Line at the back of the train when a gentleman came up to her. And her name is, I do want to say her name, Goud, because I think it's important that we talk about that. I believe her last name was McGee. And so she was on the back of the bus. And what happened is this gentleman named Lewis Reed, he walked up to her with bottles filled of gasoline, like it looked like pop bottles, and he poured it onto her for no reason at all, and then said something along the lines as burn, B-I-T-C-H. And then she tried to run from him, and he chased her through the car, throwing the ignited bottle at her, setting her on fire.
Oh,
and then
God.
she basically burned. My understanding is that when the train stopped and the doors emerged, she fell out, still on fire, with then other passengers tried to get her not on fire anymore. But here's the kicker, Gab. The man, Lawrence Reed, who set her on fire, was arrested 72 times since of age 18. He's got 15 convictions, did no jail time, Gab. Probation only, every single time.
There you go.
Is
this him?
That's our fine gentleman there. Yep. He looks pretty small, right?
That's insane to me. So you said 72 arrests?
15 convictions. He's currently on being held on. Well, he was supposed to be held on pretrial, but that nice lady there in the picture, she is the judge who released him because she did not deem him to be a threat to society. So she went ahead and released him on electronic monitoring. So he had
she released him after he burned a woman, basically.
No, she released him. He was on pretrial because before he burned this woman, he slapped the social worker so hard she fell and got a concussion.
Wow.
So he was awaiting pretrial, and this judge here decided to let him out. Her name is Judge Teresa Molina Gonzalez. Decided to let him out because she deemed him not a danger. And then while out on electronic monitoring, he got the idea that he would set an innocent person on fire on the Blue Line, and he did indeed do that. So he slapped the social worker in August. So this is just 3 months ago. So he was awaiting his trial for that. He also, one of his convictions was in 2020, he got an arson conviction for lighting the Thompson building on fire in Chicago, also using gasoline in red containers.
Wow.
So
the Thompson building, that's like big kind of circular kind of building, right?
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that one. Okay. Wow, that's crazy.
He basically didn't burn it down, but he lit it on fire and got an arson charge. So So despite that, and then slapping recently a social worker so hard she got a concussion, he was deemed not to be a danger to society, and then he went out and lit this poor girl on fire. Her name is Bethany McGee, and it's important that we say these victims' names because people kind of always gloss over the victim, I feel like. This is a 26-year-old girl just minding her business on the Blue Line. He was actually not even supposed to be out because for his ankle monitoring, he was supposed to have curfew. He was breaking curfew on a regular basis, and they were not addressing that issue at all. This judge gave him 40 hours a week outside the house so he could free roam 40 hours a week. The Safety Act only gives you 26 hours, I think it is. And she increased it so he can have more time out of the house.
Wow. Hey, just so you know, Disagree Butter says he's been told on X that talking about the Chicago fire guy's prior arrest is racist.
I mean, I guess if you look at his picture, it is a black fella. But you know,
I don't think we would care.
I don't mean if you want to
Disagree Butter is he's being funny, that's all. But
yeah, I feel like he did light a white girl on fire, so that's probably why there's not a riot right now.
I know. Was she from rural Illinois somewhere?
Yeah, I don't know exactly where, but yes.
Okay.
So but unfortunately, that's the incident we're dealing with now. Now, good news is that the current judge decided he is a danger to society after you light somebody on fire, and he is being held.
Well, okay. So after somebody gets burned on 60% of their body, they
Yes.
finally decide, okay, we're going to put him in jail and hold him until he's convicted.
I mean, yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe he won't get convicted. He might just get another ankle monitor. But
True.
now this is all direct results of the Illinois Safety Act that we, after the George Floyd riots and everything in 2020, the Illinois Black Caucus wrote a new act for Illinois that's supposed to help reduce, I guess, crime is what they always say, but it doesn't really do that. And that was the Safety Act, which actually allows, unless you have a felony conviction, I guess, allows you to wait for pretrial. So slapping the social worker wasn't considered a felony at that time. I believe they raised it to a felony now, but that's why he was allowed to be out on ankle monitoring instead of being held like he probably should have. So that's kind of what happened there. And I just want to address that so people understand when you get 60% of burns on your body, that's pretty significant. That's a very long road to recovery, and you will never recover again. So just so people know, like when your hair burns and stuff, your scalp won't regrow hair. So this poor girl probably lost her nose, probably lost her eyelids, probably will never grow hair again. Most of her face probably melted. She's looking at multiple surgeries to even probably have a face anymore. A lot of times the fingers and toes and things like that will burn and you don't get those back. So this is pretty, so if she survives, she's never going to be the same again. Her life is ruined because this judge decided he wasn't a danger. And the prosecutor from the slapping case actually told her not to release him and said he is a danger. And the prosecutor tried to argue with her saying, don't let him out, something will happen. And she let him out anyways.
Wow.
Because that's what we do in Illinois. We just let them all free roam and, continue to hurt each other and other people. And then, but we do have good news, Goud. We had a Christmas tree lighting in Chicago over the weekend.
Okay. Did it go well?
No, Goud, it did not. I'm glad you asked. No, it did not. It resulted in, let's see, how many people? I know we had 8 deaths. It resulted in 26 people shot and 3 dead.
Wow.
So, because apparently after the Christmas tree lighting, the teen takeovers that went to the lighting decided, let's go shoot up people and fight with each other. So it caused a great deal of chaos. One of the youngest victims was a 14-year-old boy who had nothing to do with it, who was, I guess, just attending the lighting. And he got shot and killed. His name is Armani Floyd. So he got caught up in that. But we don't have a crime problem at all. So nothing to see here, Gad. It's safe. Come back home.
Well, do you have any closing thoughts for us about lessons? I think one thing we just learned is we don't want your bills.
Yes, don't do the Safety Act. It doesn't end well. So yeah, definitely. It's always Illinois, man. And that was a direct response to the George Floyd. So it's supposed to make Illinois citizens safer, hence Safety Act. But it really just allows everybody to get, because then it enacted the no cash bail. So you don't have to pay cash or any sort of money to get out. It made it so you don't have to be held unless you have a felony charge, and a judge gets to do whatever they want. So judges just kind of let everybody out anyways.
That's horrible.
Yeah, but that's what you're missing back home. But we'll have more Christmas festivities.
Yeah, hopefully you'll be able to make Illinois great again. But
I'm not hopeful. Between Brandon Johnson and Pritzker, the state's constant chaos. So, and they keep telling us it's all good, and it's I feel like you can't even go to the Christmas tree lighting. You're being taxed to death, and now you can't ride. I mean, riding the L was always an adventure. We used to do that, but I never thought I'd be lit on fire for no reason.
I know, right?
Sometimes a homeless man might pee on the L train, and then you have to smell it while you were on it, but never be lit on fire. So
yeah,
I think between that and then what was the one that happened? Was that in Virginia or something where the girl got her throat cut by the guy?
Oh, that was North Carolina. That was horrible.
Yeah, she was on public transportation too, right?
Yeah, there might be a lesson there. Okay, Randy, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Goud.
Yeah, and we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Please continue to come back for our segments.
No problem. Talk to you later, Gab. Bye.
Bye. Okay, that was good back home. But Brandy, let's bring Mike Carey on, and we'll discuss housing in Utah. So okay, hey Mike, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, dude?
Good. Sorry about the delay there.
You're good. I was late anyway, so.
Yeah, she ended up calling it early, so I was like, oh, okay, Mike's late, so we'll go with this.
No worries. No worries.
Okay, so let me pull up your tweet so people can let's have this up. Okay, so I want to actually start. So I went through. I read the article. This was a great article, by the way. I actually posted it because I was like, this. It gives people really good insights into housing. I was struck. I think one of the issues that really struck me was this idea that people are using stale data and that the data ends at the beginning of 2023. Talk about maybe why that matters, especially as people are developing policies around housing in Utah.
Sure. No, first of all, thanks for having me on. I started looking at this issue last year. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself for those that don't know me. I'm the Salt Lake County Party chair. Okay. Last year I was a Salt Lake County Republican Party chair. Last year, I was a candidate for the county council at large. I lost in the primary to Rochelle Morris. And one of my big things was housing and development. And the reason for that is I've spent 24 years in construction prior to this, working mostly on large development deals and $1 billion plus. And managing large projects. And so you're always dealing with local zoning, authorities having jurisdiction, you name it. Right. And so part of that, you have to become familiar with the zoning code. And so I started watching, housing prices went through the roof here in the post-COVID world, or in the post-COVID era, the first 2 years after the pandemic in 21 and 22. We saw, all we heard was we have no supply, we have no supply, we have no supply. And so I started to really question that narrative last year as a candidate. But it wasn't until, I want to say, the fall when I really started to question the legitimacy of those claims in the current sense. And so I looked at the report from the Kem Gardner Institute that's referenced in this article I did on Twitter, or X, excuse me. And I found that like a lot of the source data they used was so old. It was from either late 2022 or early 2023. And so I wondered to myself, what's the current data say? Same data set. Okay. What's the current data say? And what I saw was shocking. It was basically that we had, a significant amount of inventory, well above the peak COVID, where we saw, less than 1,200 homes on the market statewide. And we were seeing homes go for, days on market was like 7, I think, at the lowest. And so, which is crazy. I mean, that's a hot market. Yeah. Well, and consider the circumstances. You had 3% or less mortgages. You had, people were telecommuting. They could pretty much move from anywhere to Utah and put, a significant amount of money towards a house that was moderately priced. And so I started looking at these data tables and really familiarizing myself with the information that the Kem Gardner Institute was using. And it was shocking because the policy we've seen for the last 2.5 years has been driven on data from the worst time in our real estate market since the Great Recession. Okay. And that became a very convenient narrative, for a lot of folks in the state to push for densification of all the suburbs and, transit hubs and, basically everything you've seen built over the last few years when it comes to what we would call affordable housing, which is apartments and whatnot. So apartments are smaller homes, small lot sizes, you name it. So that was that policy from 2023 became mainly that Kem Gardner Institute piece from September of 23 became the source document for everything you've heard the last 2.5 years for, as this push towards densifying all the suburbs.
Okay. Talk about, so, one of the things I thought was interesting was how you're measuring supply. So whether we have sufficient supply, maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think sometimes people don't understand how we're supposed to gauge whether there's a sufficient supply of housing in the area or not. And I think you have a way to address that makes sense.
Yeah. So everything comes back to what everyone defers to as the supply and demand, right? Basic basic economic principle of supply and demand. Mm-hmm. Well, when supply is really low and demand is really high, that's where you saw in 2021 and 22 a significant amount. You saw a significant amount of homes going for above asking price, and you saw a significant escalation in the median home price for the state. I think it got as high as $650,000 at one point.
Oh, God, that's crazy.
Yeah, for median home price. Okay, that's not, and so, that makes a lot of sense because, again, demand is high, supply is low. Well, what you would expect to see is that as supply starts to come back, you would see more price competition. If you in the inverted scenario where supply is high and demand is low, prices crash. Okay, because everyone's competing for buyers. It's a return to a buyer's market. And what we have right now is very interesting, and that is we have very high supply. You can see right there that on this chart you're showing for the active listing count, we're at 14,239 for the month ending October. And that is higher than any date in this chart, which only goes back to 2016, but it's the highest it's been since 2012. Okay, in the entire state. Wow. And what you can also see is that dark blue line is that you can see that median home price, which at the peak, I think in early 2022, if you go over there, you can see that we were at 643, 450. All right, that's an expensive house, but it's been modulating between 550, 560, and 640 ever since then. And you can see that kind of modulation is tightening, and now you're actually starting to see a downturn. And I would posture that is that is because we have such high supply or inventory on the market. So why have we seen this push to add all these homes if we have ample supply and prices are starting coming down on median home price? So that's been my challenge to the governor's office and others in the legislature.
Yeah. So if you, in terms of trying to have the legislature look at better data sets, have you had success or luck in trying to get them to maybe look at a different data set or look at this differently so that they understand where the market's at and maybe that there might be different policy solutions?
Well, the first thing you got to overcome, listen, this is Utah. It's no secret we love our narratives. Okay. We jump on bandwagons. Everyone wants to be part of the team. Okay. The narrative going for the last 2.5 years has been, we have such low supply that we must do something. Okay. And the only way to do that is to densify cities and to go multifamily everywhere. We've seen it with the massive apartment complexes all over the county, especially down the I-15 corridor and all these transit hubs. Vacancy rates are pretty high right now. Okay. I don't know how high from a percentage because there's like multiple sources you can go to and none of them are great. But it's certainly high enough. I know for a fact that one of the state's largest developers, who I shall not name, is actually going belly up because they over leveraged themselves in some of this multifamily market. But that's a renter's space. When you talk about home buyers, we've seen this push for 12 homes per acre. Okay. An acre is 43,450 square feet or something like that. Divide that by 12 and then account for roads and driveways. That's not a lot of space. Okay.
Yeah.
So you've seen this push to go to these smaller homes under the guise of affordable starter homes. And my fear is that, what you're seeing is you're going to see buyers that have bought in the last few years that invested in any of these homes. Yeah, they may own something, but they might be trapped there for a while because they paid a premium on top of a premium. They bought it at peak market, and they paid escalated construction pricing like we've seen in the market since COVID.
Well, okay, talk about that a little bit. I know when we had a conversation earlier, you were talking about kind of the square footage cost of new homes versus existing homes. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I think I looked at a press release almost a year ago. It talked about Nielsen Homes up in Plain City, was very proud of this. Hey, here's these affordable entry houses, that were basically 11 to 1,200 square feet. They were on very small lots. Okay. And, when the cost per square foot was pushing $400 a square foot, why would I, if I'm spending $400 a square foot on 11 or 1,200 square foot house, and I'm going to be competing in a year or two as my family, if you want to argue that is for starting family, people looking to start a family, you're not going to last very long in an 1,100 square foot home. Okay.
Right.
At least not by Utah standards. So when you go when you compare that to $180 to $250 a square foot, depending on zip code, you're seeing for existing inventory. And I'm not talking in suburbs. I'm not talking about mansions or luxury homes or anything like that. I'm talking, your typical Utah house, 2,600 to 3,500 square feet on a quarter to a fat third of an acre. Yeah. You're going to be paying 180 to 250 depending on your zip code. So what happens in 3 to 5 years, when that poor family that bought that house at a premium for $400 a square foot now wants to move to something larger, and let's say they have their third kid and they want to upsize to a bigger home, and they're never going to be able to get out from underneath the cost basis that they paid for the home to go buy something else for arguably half the price per square foot.
Okay. Well, so if you're talking to a young family today or one of these first-time home buyers, what's your advice to them?
Wait. Save your money and wait. Okay. You can rent a decent apartment in the suburbs, or you can rent a house. All right. Rent a duplex or, something in a townhome or something like that. But just wait. The market is cooling off. I've been predicting this for the last 16 months. The market has to cool off. All right. Because it's completely unsustainable. And that's the bottom line. If there was a school teacher in Sandy who supported me in my campaign, and his dad supported me as well. He was also a school teacher, and the son said, hey, I want to, came to me like a year ago and said, hey, I'm interested in buying a home. And I said, dude, wait until next fall, because I think the bottom's going to fall out of the market. And while we don't want the bottom to fall out, because that would be a crash, and no one does well in a crash. People get hurt in a housing crash. You want this thing to slowly deflate, just like it got inflated super fast. We want it to slowly deflate so that we can eventually, catch up. Income levels will arguably increase over time. If the median home price slowly comes down, you're always going to be, and now we're starting to see interest rates calm down a little bit from the spike we saw after, to basically to address the inflation that we saw back in 2022 and 23 with everything the Fed was doing. We got up to 7+%. Now we're back in like the mid fives, as I understand it. I think mid 5 is still a pretty darn good interest rate, but especially compared to my parents who were paying like 18% back in the 80s. But as you start to see this normalization happen, I think it's going to be a lot better market for everyone in 2026.
Okay. So, I mean, because, like from all the kind of news I see, there seems to just be a lot of pressure on these young people to get out there and buy a house. And I feel like that's what some is driving this is instead of because I kind of like this message, just be patient. Things will work in your favor. And one of the reasons I say this is, like I live in Riverton. We were talking about this earlier, but like quarter-acre lots. The houses here are probably, I would guess, average around 3,000 square feet. And most of my neighbors have been here for more than 20 years. They're around my age. These were their starter homes.
Yeah.
And they raised their kids in them. And I guess what I'm wondering is, like, do you see a point where this again becomes affordable to those young families so they can move into neighborhoods like this, have the yard, have the community that you get in a place like this?
Well, that's a complicated question because the answer is it depends. Okay. If you could slide that cursor down a little bit so that floating block is doesn't conceal most of it, or even click off the chart. There you go. If you look at the trend line pre-COVID from 2016 to 2020,
yeah,
and look at where we are at the blue line right now, we're almost at that same point. Okay. Now we were now housing inflation before COVID was about 6.5% to 7.5%, depending on where you were in the state. Okay.
Okay.
And what I've been screaming about for over a year and a half is we need the market to come. I think I was talking about this back in March of 24, that if you drew a trend line of the average before COVID to where we are now, we were overpriced by like $60,000. Look where we are now. We're getting really close to returning to that pre-COVID trend line. Okay. There's no way to draw that, unfortunately, on this website that you're showing. But if you just drew a straight red line that followed that curve, kind of the middle of that curve prior to 2020, you'd find that we're getting really close to what would have been the market had we not experienced COVID. Okay. Now, but here's the thing: 6.5% to 7.5% year-over-year growth in housing price is too much, because that far outpaces by almost 2.5 times the wage increases that you will see on an annual basis. Okay, year over year. So why were we have to ask ourselves, what was the increase prior to COVID? And I would argue that a lot of it has to do with our economic development policy. Okay. We have seen, we're very bullish on growing our population, and even though our birth rate is at the lowest it's been in Utah, and Utah was always one of the leaders in the country. It's at, I think, 1.61 right now. It used to be above 2, which was replacement. So we are below replacement right now statewide, which means the only way to continue the growth that is being currently forecasted by the state at the Kim Gardner Institute is to import people. And we used to do that pre-COVID through economic development, tax incentive financing, move companies here. You saw Silicon Slopes, which was very focused on tech and finance. And I don't have anything against those markets, but you have to ask yourself, how many local employees are they filling those billets with? And that we know, if you've lived here long enough, that a lot of people moved here in that time, and a lot of people brought very high wages with them. Okay. So while it was great for state income tax, coffers and revenues generated by the state income tax, it didn't really help out local Utahns. Okay. Because local economy is meant to be a closed system, right? The second you open that up to say, hey, I'm going to bring in all these high wage earners to compete for housing stock and they make more money, you're going to inflate the market.
Yep.
Right. And so, I would like to see us return to an economic development policy that would really prioritize Utahns and our kids' generation. Okay. My kids' generation. And then I think if you continue to see a softening of the median home price combined with less of a focus on trying to attract people to move here and more of a focus on taking care of the people that are here, instead of having them move away to cheaper markets like we're seeing everywhere. That's been a gripe of many Utahns for a long time now, for going on 2-3 years. It's too expensive to live here. My kids can't live here. Well, if we prioritize growing the local economy and growing the businesses that are already here, I think you'll see a lot less incentive for companies to move people here okay, that are inevitably going to be coming from a more expensive market. Therefore, they're competing for housing, therefore keeping the housing price inflated.
Okay. Has there been a shift in that economic policy development? Because I haven't heard as much lately about kind of companies moving here as maybe I did a few years ago.
Yes, I used to be one of the biggest critics of GOEO, the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. Prior to that, it was called GOED, Governor's Office of Economic Development. I was a strong critic of theirs. I will say that after, I'd say beginning in 2022, right around the peak, we started to see this tempering of enthusiasm to go out and try to attract companies from the Bay Area or, all these other high-priced, predominantly blue cities, okay, and move them to the Wasatch Front. I would, and I think we're starting to see an emphasis on manufacturing, and I like that. Okay, I like that a lot. I think this is a great book. I've read it twice. I've got a lot of flags in it. Once and Future Worker by Orrin Cass.
Yeah.
Okay, it talks about a manufacturing base. That's what really, kind of spurned the economic prosperity we saw in the post-World War II era. Okay, with especially among the middle class. That's what created the suburbs. Okay, I think if you can preserve them by returning to a manufacturing base and not focusing so much on services. Okay, and I would consider software a service.
Yep. Okay, that's interesting. Now, when you're we had also talked about this idea of this incoming great boomer sell-off.
Yes.
Maybe talk about that, because I feel like that is something that's missing in terms of maybe predictions about how many houses we need in the future, is not taking into account that there's this large generation of people that are heading towards their, no offense, into their end years here. So.
Yeah. Well, you have the biggest generation, the baby boomer generation, who bought a bunch of these homes, at some point in their life and are currently living in them, especially in Utah, northern Utah. There's approximately 250,000 homes that will be coming on the market just due to them aging out of their homes. Okay. However you want to label it. They're either going to pass on and die, or they're going to downsize and move to a smaller facility or, smaller home. They might move into a retirement home. They might move in with their kids, they might move away. Okay. But you're going to see this significant sell-off in the next, I think we're about 2 years into what's called the Great Boomer sell-off, and they predict that that's going to be about 15 years. So we got about between now and 2038, Utah should see about 250,000 homes come on the market just from that generation vacating their homes. Now that's on top of what the Kim Gardner Institute alleges, that we need an additional 260,000 homes statewide, 82,000, almost 82,000 just in Salt Lake County. Okay.
Wow.
So my question is, where the hell are all these people coming from, and why are they coming here? We don't have that many jobs. Okay.
Yeah.
We're like record low unemployment, have been for years. It's one of our key data points we love to point to. Utah is a great place to do business, and we have very low unemployment. However, people don't, 500,000 people aren't going to move here in the next 5 to 6 years if they don't have jobs.
Right. Hopefully not.
The lift lines are bad enough at the ski resorts. I can't see it getting that bad, So that's my point, is like, I still don't have I've never gotten a clear answer from anyone on how many homes are we accounting for in the additional homes. I can't get a straight answer. The data, the housing data and forecast is, when you really unpack it, it's a function of the demographics predictions for the state, which is population growth. And I've been talking to a fair number of legislators and a lot of city councils and mayors about, you need to question that data. I think you need to question the very, very, very optimistic growth projections we have, that is creating this very dire outlook, for the state, where they say, oh, it's a crisis. We need 260,000 homes by 2033. I don't see it.
Yeah, so that's coming up pretty fast too. That's a lot of houses built in that short amount of time.
And does that number include the 250,000 that should be coming, the portion of the 250,000 that should be coming on the market because of the baby boomers? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I can't get a straight answer, like I said.
Yeah, and you had said too that actually even like for Salt Lake County that the population, if it wasn't for international immigration, would have fallen over some period of time. Is that right?
Yeah, back in March, there was a news article that came out in one of the newspapers that said 2033 or 2023 and 2024, had it not been for 31,000 international immigrants, okay, the population of the county would have decreased by almost 11,000 people.
Huh.
Okay, so that means without immigration, immigration is what accounted for most of our growth. We would have declined had we not had that. We all, we don't have to sugarcoat it. We know that the open borders policy of the Biden administration led to a vast number of people moving to Utah under temporary protected status or under asylum. We hear about it all the time. We also know, thanks to a mutual friend of ours, that a lot of those folks were, even though they may have crossed illegally into the United States, were getting securing Social Security numbers, which is enough to get a job, which is enough to, and thanks to our E-Verify law, changing from 15 people in a company to 150 people, basically 98% of the companies in Utah did not have to use E-Verify. So citizenship was, kind of glossed over if you wanted to. We know for a fact that people were celebrating on Instagram, utilizing the First Homes Act, a program that was undoubtedly put in place to benefit Utahns in buying their first home, with rate buy downs and down payment assistance back when, the market was really hot. And it's still pretty hot. It's just not as hot as it was with that much inventory on the market. We know that they were utilizing those programs, and those programs were meant for Utahns. I'm sorry. Okay. They weren't meant for, people who crashed the border and then found their way to Utah, because we have very friendly, even though we're not a sanctuary state, we have a lot of policies that mimic one.
Well, yeah, and that mutual friend had told us, I think we were talking about this. She had talked about the real estate agents that kind of facilitate it. I actually went to one of their classes once, and they actually, like, I went, I was like, oh, I want to check it out. And I was the only person that didn't speak Spanish. And there was a real estate agent who was like, he was white. And I think he went on a mission to a Spanish speaking country, so he knew how to speak Spanish. And he was like, okay, he's like, I'll translate for you once we get the class started. And then all of a sudden, the other woman was like, oh, we're not going to do the class today. We're just going to go home to home and look at houses. And I was like, okay. So I walked in and they just shut down the class.
You got found out, huh?
Very quickly. Yeah. So you can't even find out what they're talking about. I was just curious, like, what are they saying? And I couldn't figure it out because, they knew I infiltrated.
Well, here's what you needed, all right, to qualify for the First Homes Act. You needed some verifiable income for 6 months. You needed a very low credit score, something like 600, 640, something like that. And you can get a credit card, high interest rate credit card, and established credit in the United States very quickly, just by, charging stuff, allowing it to hit the statement, and then paying it off within a month or two. And you'll qualify from the credit rating perspective and establishing credit. And then thirdly, you had to have, proof of domiciliary, I believe, in Utah. So that's pretty easy to do. Okay. That's a very low bar.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now I think, so in your article, you talk about suggestions that you've made to change that program. Mm-hmm. Tell us about those suggestions, and maybe, is there any movement to do that?
So I won't name names, but I've spoken to multiple legislators that understand that the programs that were put in place to prioritize Utahns are not solely being used by Utahns. Okay. Putting a citizenship or green card, legal immigration status, not TPS. Now, mind you, this article you're showing folks is also from February, I believe it was. So we
yeah, I mean,
not to
but
pat
you have.
myself on
I'm
the
just
back,
trying to go
pretty
down
much-
to where you had the recommendations on here.
I got you. Most of the predictions I made back in February have come to fruition. So, so let's go through the list. So item one, you had demand the housing Kim Gardner Institute update based on recent data. They did that in July 23rd, I believe it was, or July 8th. They updated. They published a report for the 2025 housing outlook, and they basically said on the top page of page 13, top of page 13, that all the predictions they made back in 2023 did not come to fruition.
Well, you say I'd give them credit for that.
I'll give them credit for that. And there was myself and others were putting a lot of pressure on folks to get the real information. So the second item, on my suggestions list was table-ending discussion on pending litigation informed by previous data set until such time that it's been completed and afforded adequate time for evaluation and public scrutiny. This goes back to the pushback we saw on SB 337 last session, where it wanted to basically create a super developer agency for the state. And thankfully it went nowhere and the bill got pulled. Expand the pool of information available to legislators. I would, it's not that I want to challenge the Kim Gardner Policy Institute, but we can have a little bit of cynicism or skepticism about the information that comes out of them. Hint, look at the donors. Okay. A lot of them are in the development community. The fourth item was this Utah workforce housing advocacy, which is a whole hot mess in and of itself. This is basically a nonprofit that was stood up by the state housing czar, Steve Waldrop, back in late 2023, right before he got named as the state housing czar. They went in and got a ton of money from the legislature to basically, promote high density housing under this notion that we needed more supply. Matt Lusty was involved with, he was the PR manager. We know from a Grandma request earlier this year that, they spent close to $1 million on a marketing campaign and for high density housing and zoning, relaxing zoning controls for smaller lots, as well as paying Envision Utah for a survey to find out what's the public sentiment on housing density. And, obviously the pushback was tremendous.
Just on that point, we talked earlier, because I've always wondered kind of why is there such a push for high density housing? And it sounds like at least part of it is that they make more money from high density housing versus kind of your normal middle class neighborhood.
Yeah. I mean, I've built a lot of these apartments. There's higher margin on apartment buildings and high density. There's higher margins at the end of the spectrum where you have high density, whether it's multifamily rentals or single family attached or detached high density housing, and the other end of the spectrum, which is luxury homes or entry level luxury homes. Let's call it like anything over $800,000, $900,000. Okay.
Yeah.
Everything in the middle, the margin's less.
Okay.
It just is. Okay. And that's coming from someone who knows what these things cost. So,
okay.
The next, SB 240, which enabled the First Time Homebuyers Act. This is where I said you need to put in expand a qualifying residential unit to include single family homes, townhomes, or condos. Previously it was only new constructed homes only, and it should be expanded. One of the ideas I've talked about with some legislators that's actually gaining traction, and I hope to see in this next session is, I did an analysis of the Canyon School District where I live. My kids gone through the Canyon School District, and the numbers are insane. Okay. We have 28. There's three types of schools. There's elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, right? And there's fewer. The higher up you go, the bigger the schools get, so the fewer the number of schools, right? I think Canyon's has five high schools. But out of 28 elementary schools within the Canyon School District boundary, okay, I believe that was something like 18 would be in the 5-year forecast would be below 60% enrollment, and
wow.
and 13 of those would be below 15%, 50%. Okay.
Wow.
So my idea, and I approached Senator Cullimore about this, and he's actually very excited, and he's got policy advisors looking at this, and other legislators as well. And he's my senator, and we have a good relationship, good working relationship. Let's study this. Okay. Maybe we open up the First Homes Act to be able to, basically prioritize areas where we're seeing declining enrollment. Why is that? Well, because I've already paid for the schools. I've already paid for the roads. I've already paid for all the infrastructure required to support that community. I just don't have enough kids. Okay. And I need to incentivize families to want to move into those boundaries. And you could do that on a rolling basis. Like if we find, like, let's say you look at all the school districts in the densely populated counties of the state, and, you set a threshold, say, hey, these 20 boundaries are going to be where we prioritize the First Homes Act. And then next year, change it, because this data is almost in real time. It's based off enrollment numbers.
Interesting. Okay. That seems like a very efficient way to handle like drops in student enrollment. So you're kind of thinking very like futuristically, like we want to keep enrollment at this level. Let's try to get people to move in.
Why would I want to build more sprawl and schools and all the tax burden that comes with that on the southwest side of the valley when I've got schools that I'm considering shutting down on the East Bench? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And schools are going for $400 or $500 a square foot right now.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. We already talked about the eligibility.
The citizenship requirement. What did I have for number 7 there?
This was interesting. I didn't understand this point about the manufactured housing part of this.
Yeah.
Because so maybe talk about that a little bit. I was a little bit lost here.
So in other parts of the country, you can build a manufactured home, a nice one, okay, for less, about 2,300 square feet with a garage. It comes in like 3 to 4 modular sections, comes out of a factory. The quality is fantastic. Okay. Yeah. There's no basement. There might not be a second floor. Some of them do have second floors. You can buy those for $130,000. Okay. And you take that plus the land cost, you're going to do way better than $400,000 for 1,100 square foot home on a parcel that's the size of a postage stamp. Okay.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, because we've got a lot of home builders in the state, they've been trying to skin this cat on their own way by taking what I'm calling a stick build approach, which is you send a bunch of framers out and they go blow out a bunch of homes. Then you send all the next trade and the next trade and the next trade. There's no way to take that model and put it in a factory, okay, and expect it to cost any less. If anything, it's going to cost more because now you're shipping. You got to figure out how to put it together once it gets out into the field. There are already manufacturers in this country, all over this country. There's 6 within 4 hours of Salt Lake City, right? Huge manufacturers that can do single family homes. And I don't know why we haven't prioritized that. I have an idea as to why, because that brings competition into the single family home market, and that's bad for business if you're a local stick built developer. But I would really like to see the governor's office, and I can help facilitate this. I'm working on workforce housing solutions for some of these massive projects around the country that I'm working on, and I've had permanent sitting on a foundation, 1,600 square foot homes on cheap land for less than $150,000.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And I guess, so would this need a change in our regulatory environment to allow the use of the manufactured home? Is that the main issue? No. Okay.
It's all business.
Oh, okay. So it's
just, we don't have a manufacturer we don't have a large production manufacturer in Utah. They exist in Idaho. I believe there's one in Arizona. There's a couple actually in Idaho. Again, large. I'm talking large scale production. You know, they can pump out a lot of homes.
Okay.
So
do you need it geographically closer to where you're actually going to place the homes?
You want to have it a day or two's drive from the factory. Okay.
Okay.
But, you know, again, like I said, we took a bunch of stick-built home builders, threw them in a room and said, how do we make this off-site? And they couldn't make it pencil. Well, it's because that's not their business. You need to take a manufacturer's approach, manufacturer's mindset to how to build the home. Okay. And there's a ton of companies out there that have already figured that out.
Yeah.
They have the plans. You can buy them. You can literally buy one online.
Okay. Okay. So we're just about at time here because I know you got to go. Where I think people, for one thing, want to keep an eye on your X handle because you do post good information on housing. So where can they find you? And maybe do you have any suggestions for Utahns about what to be looking out for as the legislative session approaches?
Sure. So for one, you know, I'm not a fan. I'm vehemently opposed to this zoning preemption discussion that's happening at the state level where they want to pass a statewide zoning code. I don't think that's necessary at all. So you need to make sure that you're very vocal with your legislators that zoning control needs to stay local. Okay.
Okay.
And if I may, here's why. Okay. Everyone likes to talk about property rights. Okay. I own my property. Okay. The guy next to me owns my property. The lady across the street owns her property. The guy on the other side of me owns their property. What property rights does a person have or an entity have if they're a speculative buyer on any one of those properties? They have none. Okay.
Yeah.
Because they don't own the property. So what's been happening, and part of this push you've seen is, you know, and they have many ways to do it. One is through transportation dollars. You know, what programs are you from this list of, you know, 36 options are you going to choose from? Well, they're all high density options.
Yeah.
Okay. In order to get your transportation dollars. So they kind of have the city councils over a barrel when it comes to, you know, making decisions. If they want to get their transportation dollars, they have no choice but to densify. And you know, what bothers me is when we hear, well, property rights. Yeah, I'm a property rights absolutist too, but for the property I own and for the property other people own, not for the speculative buyer that wants to come into a single family zoned area, which is really, that's what the entire master plan for any city has agreed upon. It's almost like a social compact. Okay. That says, if I buy this house in this lot, I know I'm getting R whatever. Okay. Which is a single family zone. Okay. I shouldn't assume that I'm going to jump like 2 or 3 sections over on the zoning table to like high density urban, you know, multifamily. All right. So my property rights say I can expect a move in one or maybe 2 with a rezone, but you know, maybe 1 with a variance or with a public hearing. But to just assume that you can make this leap a couple sections over into high density urban or multifamily in any suburb is a ridiculous proposition. That's not what current property owners signed up to in that social compact when they agreed to pay taxes and buy a home in that town. Okay. Yeah. And that's certainly not what they, you know, no one's electing city council mayors to increase the population of their city in order to densify it. If they are, it's Salt Lake City, you know, it's not here. It's not in Cottonwood Heights. It's not in Riverton. It's definitely
not in Riverton.
You know?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to do something like transportation hubs where the state or the federal government is making massive investments in light rail or something like that, fine. Okay. But that's all subject to public hearing anyway. But, you know, this plopping high density in the middle of, you know, on undeveloped tracks in the middle of the suburbs is ridiculous. It's the infrastructure that we talked about earlier, like the schools and the roads and the sewer, and none of that is set up for that. That was all built according to the master plan. And the zoning the existing zoning is a function of that master plan. And so what I've been telling people is, you know, like Utah Citizens for the Constitution, Jem Brown's group has done a great job daylighting a lot of this. I'm a big fan of what they do. We've been pushing out a lot of information through them on their mailing list. I have a housing cheat sheet I sent to you, which is a 2-page document with live links, to all that, like that chart you showed earlier. A couple of my Twitter posts just showing kind of like the chronology of, okay, first let's start with that article, and that's the big thing, and then let's look at the source documents, and all my sources are cited. There's no assumptions and no hand, even though I talk with my hands because that's my Jersey genes talking to you. There's not a lot. There's not a there's no woo there. Okay, it's all based on data. So So, Utah Citizens for the Constitution is all over this. My Twitter handle is at Mike Carey, the number 4cc on Twitter. I don't really go on Facebook or Instagram. I can't figure out Instagram anyway. So,
that is fun.
Yeah, it's kind of a hot mess when it comes to menus. But, so really the primary outlet for me is, and again, I don't do any of this as party chair. It's just, this is my personal, opinion. But, the general sense is that we're constantly being told, you got to densify, you got to densify, you got to densify. And no one's asking for this. Okay. What we're asking for is a solution to housing affordability. All right. And I don't want to implement some blue state tactics, frankly, Maryland, Oregon, Colorado, okay, California, Massachusetts. These are all states that have been referenced in state reports, okay, by Utah legislature.
Crazy.
As examples of where densification has solved the problem. Well, how are those states? What's the voting demographic of those states? If you're a conservative in Utah, that should tell you something.
Yeah, also, it has not solved the problem in California. The prices are still sky high. Like, nobody was talking about.
But listen, when I lived in Maryland, I was on the Department of Permitting. It was a county-based zoning system for Montgomery County. And I was on the Department of Permitting Services Advisory Committee for 4 years. And they were talking about, in 2004, accessory dwelling units being the solution to housing affordability. Didn't solve a single thing.
Yeah.
They built a ton of them. Those homes pretty much turned into boarding houses, okay, because you had like 3 families, 2 living in the main house and 1 living in the garage. I mean, that's not an absolute universal statement, but that's a lot of what you saw. And because they didn't accompany that entitlement on single-family zoned properties with the appropriate or commensurate amount of inspection, either annual inspections or upon lease renewal, it turned into the Wild West.
Crazy. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your insights, Mike. We appreciate it.
Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Okay, let me turn this off. Okay. Well, that was really helpful. I mean, again, you should follow Mike on X. It's at Mike Carey, Carey, the number 4cc. Because I really think his housing insights are some of the best. And the predictions he made on the market are really good. Like, he's actually hitting really well in terms of where this is trending. And I think it's good, especially if you're someone thinking about buying, because I would take his advice and be patient. Don't jump into the market. Okay, let me play this for you guys. So this is kind of wild. Okay, give me a second here. So I found this Instagram post, and it was about a meeting that happened at the Salt Lake County Council. And so let me play this for you, because I am just really fascinated by this.
Significantly impacted by the decision.
I don't know how to play these better.
If you've never been to a city or county council meeting, you really have no idea what it's like unless you're right there. They do film it, but you don't get any of the drama behind the scenes. I want to take you to what happened yesterday. This woman and her 3 friends show up to the county council meeting.
Let me just say something. So I think these 3 women, as far as I know, Pat Jones, so she'll mention her name in a minute, but I think they are actually there because of the Salt Lake County Republican Women's Club. So props to them. They're apparently showing up every single week and tracking what's going on at the Salt Lake County Council. So we should be thankful that these 3 women are sacrificing their time to do this for us. I like the one with the sunglasses on. That's pretty.
every week like it's their job.
Hello, here again. Dina Long.
My name is Pat Jones.
I'm Cindy Thompson.
And they speak so loudly and so negatively, every foul thought that comes out of their mouth. And they do this every week. This week, this woman got up and said, the government should not be taking care of daycares, senior centers, or women in trade, and thought she was really cool doing that. She went and sat down behind my friend Jordan, who's one of the parents who relies on the daycare. And this woman said, very loudly, mind you, you shouldn't have kids if you can't afford them, right. Which set off my friend Jordan, because after she had her child, she suffered from 28 strokes. She was no longer able to take care of her child. She is now in lifelong medical debt.
Okay, can I just say something? I don't know. So this woman claims she suffered from 28 strokes. I've known people who have had strokes. Like I had a grandmother that had a stroke. It did not. I don't understand what she's saying when she says she has 28 strokes. I don't even think that's a true story. The other thing I was going to say, that's because I think liberals actually make stuff up a lot to kind of create these sob stories, that if she actually suffered from 28 strokes, I'm a little bit unclear. I guess we don't really know any details, like what are the medical ramifications of this? How is she suffering? In this case, this lady, Tennille, I guess that's her name, Tennille, is saying my friend can't take care of her kid anymore. Well, okay, she can't take care of her kid, but she has time to show up at the Salt Lake County Council meeting to talk about how she needs this daycare program. I guess I'm just a little bit like, so you have time for that, but you can't take care of your children or your child in this case.
That she also has lifelong medical obligations to fulfill every 3 months.
That to me sounds like she has to go to the doctor once every 3 months. I don't actually think that that's a big deal. Lots of people do that, and they continue to do all the other things they have to do in life, right? I would like to know a lot more about this lady who had the 28 strokes, because I, again, don't have any idea what that means. I've never heard of someone having 28 strokes and surviving, so this is just a weird story.
Will never get out of this debt. Because of this, she is unable to have another child. So while she was able to afford her child when she and her husband originally had the baby, shit happens, right? And this woman could not have been any more foul in how she treated my friend Jordan. She turned around and said, I had 28 strokes. How dare you? And this woman with her sunglasses did not want to let it up. She started taking them off and goading her more. And I just want to tell you how important it is to go to your council meetings, whether it's your community, whether it's your city, whether it's your county. Please go. Find out what's happening, even if it's online at least, but you have no idea the type of people that make it their job to go and ruin other people's lives. So if you want your voice to be heard, please show up to city and county council meetings. The next one we have before the budget is finalized is November 25th at 10 a.m. and then December 9th at 10 a.m. and again at 6 p.m. And that is the final date that the budget will be finalized. No more changes after that. Please come, make your voice heard, support these families.
Okay, so again, I just think this story does not make sense to me. I think liberals make stuff up. And if you actually look at the beginning of the video, I don't know. Let's see if we can get it to replay. Oh, see, like this woman actually looks like she's being nasty, right? She's like screaming and yelling at them. And what I'll say is that this is the type of person that shows up at the meetings to go and take money from those of us that are working to give it to other people. And so if you're going to claim you had 28 strokes and you can't care for your own child anymore, I want more information. Like, what does that mean? Are you not able to work? Are you not able to take care? Like, if you're not working, are you really not able to take care of your child during the day? Because that just seems weird to me. And then why do you depend on the subsidized daycare from the county instead of going and getting other daycare? Like this Tennille basically says her friend is married and has a husband, so they should. I mean, it is your obligation to take care of your kids. That's how this works. So I'd like to know a lot more information before I'm going to buy the story. And I'm really stuck at the 28 strokes because I don't understand how you have 28 strokes and that woman looks functional in the video. So I just thought that was interesting because, like I said, the sob stories leftists come up with to me is just amazing. Okay, then I want to talk. We'll just talk about this really quick. I already did my signature gathering thing, so we've got that. So let's. Here's I have very random things today. I'm kind of a random. So there was this Nate Bluen. Actually, first, let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene, because I think this is a very unfortunate situation. Let me see if I can pull this up. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, as I think a lot of you have heard, decided to resign from Congress. And I do think this is a loss for normal people. And I didn't agree with everything. I feel like at the end, she was turning a little bit open bordersy for me. But I thought in her statement, she said something that really kind of, where I was like, oh, this is really true what she's saying. So she says here, it's this paragraph. When the common American people finally realize and understand that the political industrial complex of both parties is ripping this country apart, that not one elected leader like me is able to stop Washington's machine from gradually destroying our country. And instead, the reality is that they, common Americans, the people, possess the real power over Washington, then I'll be here by their side to rebuild it. And what I want to say is this. We have the same problem in Utah of a political industrial complex that shuts out grassroots people on both sides from being part of government. So on the Republican side, because I can talk about this from what I know, when conservatives run in Republican primaries, the onslaught by establishment Republicans is unbelievable. The amount of time, effort, and money that they will expend to defeat actual conservatives is just out of control. So when I ran for District 48, that was a good example of that. The entire establishment was sending out emails, putting out statements. I had Kara Birkeland. Kara Birkeland was attacking me. I mean, this woman is a total absolute fraud who has lied about multiple events, claiming that they happened when they didn't. So first one is that she got attacked in a bathroom at the 2016 RNC convention. That was a flat out lie that she told. And she did it to get news coverage. Then in 2024, she lied and said that a female volunteer at the Utah State GOP convention harassed her daughter for wearing booty shorts to the convention. Her daughter was wearing booty shorts, but nobody actually harassed her. That part of the story was made up. And then the other piece is that, so then she passed this HB 257 and she would not do a categorical ban on men and women's spaces because that would offend Equality Utah. She actually went and worked with this tranny, Sue Robbins, and Troy Williams, Utah's first gentleman, to get a bill that was a compromise and allows men to go into women's bathrooms. Well, she was attacking me because one of my planks was, I'm going to go and fix this bill. And then you had even Candace Perucci, Andy Perucci, they weighed in, so to speak, into the race very heavily. Because for them, the control of this area and not having actually any real conservatives in office is very important because they're just grifters. The grifters are the worst kind, by the way. And so that's what I would say about this is, the establishment on our side is vicious. They were vicious when Monica Wilbur ran. They were vicious towards her. Natalie Klein, when that social media post, they blew it out of proportion because they already had a preconceived notion of trying to get her out of that position. And look who they replaced her with, Amanda Bollinger, who is a total leftist. I mean, the woman supports the trans agenda. That's what they want. And the Democrats, I assume, are the same way. Although I think their establishment is more leftist than the Republican establishment is conservative. So we have the same political industrial complex in Utah, and it is destroying the state. So until people are willing, and actually, like, look in the 24 election, the reality of this is that Governor Cox and Lieutenant Governor Henderson actually cheated. They cheated to get onto the Republican primary ballot. They should not be the governor and lieutenant governor right now. They lost at convention. They got blown out, and they did not qualify for the GOP primary ballot through convention. They were required to collect 28,000 signatures. They did not, and they knew it, and they still put themselves on the ballot. So they are not legitimate, and that's how. And that is how bad Utah is being run. Is corrupt. There's election cheating, and I don't even know how far this goes. Because if you're willing to do that kind of brazen, in-your-face cheating, then I am guessing that there is way more cheating going on in elections than what we know of. And we need to suss all this out and completely destroy the careers of anyone that was involved. In fact, that is one of my goals. We're going to get everybody involved in this type of corruption out of office. Lieutenant Governor Henderson, we are coming for you. This will be your last term. You will be going. You can go and retire back in Spanish Fork, and torture your poor husband, because you don't seem like, I'm sure you're a really pleasant person to be around. My view is, like, if you lie and you cheat about one thing, that you're probably lying and cheating about lots of things. So I don't even know if she's actually, like, really in a marriage with her husband. Who knows? Okay, so then let me see what else I got here for my. So we did the 28 strokes. Okay. Oh, then we got Nate Bluin announced that he is running for the new CD1 that the Republican Party has decided. Our legislature, which is full of feckless beta males, has decided it's not worth actually trying to challenge the judge. So this left-wing judge ran circles around them, and they're so stupid that they're not even going to do anything about it. But hey, trust me, they'll fight for you when it comes down to it, as they claim. Okay, so here is Nate Bluin talking about
things. I've been on Snap in the past. Those are things. I've been on Snap in the past. Those are things. I've been on Snap in the.
Does anybody else have a problem with that? This is an able-bodied man who he's married now, but I remember he had done an interview. It was a couple years ago. It was done by Utah Policy, so Holly Richardson. She's known as Holly on the Hill. She did the interview. I actually went and listened to it, and I remember just listening to it. I posted about it from the Utah Gay Straight Coalition X handle. And at the time, I was like, dude, this guy's a total loser. He's like never actually had a real job. He spent years voluntarily unemployed trying to find himself. While he was married to his wife, he wasn't working. He was just mooching off of her, which I just think has to be emasculating, because it would be one thing if you were like, you guys decide, okay, I make more money than you, so you should stay home and take care of the kids and I'll go to work. I think that I don't have an issue with that. But he doesn't have kids. So as Trevor Lee said, he was like a stay-at-home dad without any children. Oh. Carmelita says, how can he even be considered when he can't even pass a bill? I know, right? He's probably too busy trying to figure out how to scam the system. Because I still can't figure out, how does a able-bodied young man, because he's in his 30s, go and get onto food stamps? And what other welfare benefits was he doing? He was talking about it in this interview, by the way, like it's a positive. Oh, look at me. I used the system and I was on welfare. Like, you're a maybe single or married, whichever one, able-bodied male who could get a job, and you're on food stamps. I just think that should be disqualifying. I don't know why anyone would vote for this guy. How do you even relate to somebody like this? I don't understand it. And I'm not sitting here attacking, like, if there's some single mom or single dad, meaning they have children, and they're trying to make it, they can't make it, so they need help. Okay, that's a different issue. And we can figure out how to tackle that and do it in a way that isn't leading to abuse. But this is not, if he's on welfare at all, I think it's abusive, and that needs to be shut down. Okay. Disagree better says, how can someone like him even be emasculated? How do you subtract from 0? That's a really good, yeah, that's a great point. Okay, so maybe he's not emasculated. That might just be his normal state. And I'm saying this is a gay guy. Like some people might argue that being gay is emasculating, but at least I provide for myself, no matter what the downs have been. And because a few people have been attacking me on X, like, oh my God, you're so insensitive, blah blah blah, whatever. Because the reality is, like, at 23, I got fired from my job for politics and attacked by Equality Utah. I didn't go and jump on welfare. I actually started my own practice. I knew at the time, okay, there's no way I'm going to find a job because Equality Utah, my theory is that they actually have a list, a blacklist that they send to employers to say, don't hire this person. And that they would go after me in every way they could. Those are very evil people. And so I just was like, look, I'm going to start my own business. The entire time I was doing that, I never once thought to myself, let me go and jump onto food stamps, or let me get some other type of government assistance. I just kind of made it work. And I feel like that's what we should expect single people without children to do. Get out there, get a job, whatever it is, work as hard as you can. And let's say let's say I didn't have food for a month, so go to a food bank. That's better than going on welfare. Make it work. You should hear the stories I hear for, like, my parents, for example, when they came, like, oh, we would just eat like rice and pickle. We call it mango pickle or something for dinner to save money. That's how you would do this, right? That's how you would actually survive, as you eat ramen noodles every night. You do all these people. You should listen to stories. I have friends that talk about stuff. You listen to their stories, like the struggles they go through when they're young. Those are character building. Those are the things that actually make you a better person. They make you stronger, more resilient when you get attacked, and you can, like, make it through anything. This guy, what is this guy ever gonna do? He literally, food EBT. And by the way, like, if we can get that interview back, because Utah Policy, I guess, deleted all their interviews for whatever reason. But I'm trying to see if we can get the interview back, because he talks about, he was just like skiing. He's from Vermont, I think, in it originally. And I think he's from like a wealthy family. Don't quote me on that, but like wealthy enough that they could provide for him. And I'm actually wondering if when he was getting SNAP, were his parents sending him money, and was he reporting that money to the government as income, or was he just taking it underneath the table while the rest of us were subsidizing his lifestyle? But he was like a ski bum, trying to find himself. Oh, it's so hard. I guess he was probably smoking pot. Like, who knows? I assume that's what he was doing, because now I can't listen to interviews since they deleted it again. But I just remember the time being like, oh my God, this guy's a total loser. And this is who that district elected as a senator. So I guess that's a good representation of them. That's like where all the wealthy white liberals live. So I think a lot of them are just, maybe they're connected to government and don't have real jobs. I don't know. I can't relate to wealthy white liberals. That's such a weird mindset. A lot of them are actually very racist, and so it's hard to even listen to them talk. Truthfully says Utahns have extra special skills when it comes to emasculation. Oh my God, tell me about it. It's the worst. When you got the gay guy talking about emasculation, you got a problem. So, okay, let's. Something that's happened. I don't know why I did that. Okay, let me. I have another thing here. Let's see. I'm just gonna play this one more time, because sometimes I feel like people aren't here earlier, and just because I want to I need input from people to figure out my opinion on this one. So, like I said, my view has been, I'm not going to sign the initiative petition, right? Because I don't think we should do any sort of signatures after what happened in 2024. And the fact is, we haven't had full transparency yet. So that was my initial view. I feel like maybe I'm beginning to change my mind on this, because I want the Republican Party to gather the requisite amount of signatures so that the Democrats sue. So let me play you guys this video. I think Carmelita says his father passed away when he was young. Okay, I guess I don't remember that from the video.
Just a word of warning, like a beware to everybody living in Utah. There are signature gatherers out and about gathering signatures for what is a repeal of Prop 4. Although if you talk to them, it doesn't sound like they know what they're out there gathering signatures for, and they may not be gathering it entirely honestly. So don't sign anything. Whatever you do, don't sign anything. There's no good ballot initiatives out there being collected right now. They may tell you that they're collecting signatures for something about the maps or to protect gerrymandering or something, but that's not true. They're not very well informed, and they need to get a lot of signatures, and they're not training their people very well. So if you see somebody out there gathering signatures, feel free to talk to them. Check and see what they're up to. Maybe even film them if they seem like they're doing something sketchy or not telling the truth. But more importantly, don't sign anything.
Well, just like one point here is that all the signature gathering is just like that. They don't really, I don't think the signature gatherers are very well trained as to what they're gathering signatures for. I know people have said when they signed for Prop 4 or talked to people that the Prop 4 people didn't really understand what they were trying to gather signatures for. So I don't think what he's pointing out is actually just this initiative. It's really all these propositions and initiatives, because they write these laws that are really complicated and they ask you to sign to get it on the ballot. But I'm not even sure that that's how you should make these laws, because they're, again, there's a lot of nuance to it. Prop 4 clearly has a lot of nuance to it, although I'm not even sure that Judge Gibson is following Prop 4. She's just kind of making it up as she goes along. Oh, Carmelita says his father passed away in 2018. He was 29 when his father passed away. Okay, well, so that there's no excuse to be on Snap at 29 as a single male, or even if he was married. Like that's no excuse for that. Get a job, Nate. Yeah, not a kid at all. Okay, so here's my point. If everybody goes and signs the initiative petition, and they gather the requisite amount of signatures to get it on the ballot, the Democrats are going to sue. They're 100% going to challenge the signatures. They're probably going to dig deep into this to figure out, like, oh, was there any signature fraud? What did you guys do here? And I just think that maybe it actually helps us by exposing how the entire signature gathering and verification system is a massive fraud operation. And so that's kind of my thinking here is like, do we all just go and sign these petitions under the guise of let's hope that they gather the minimum number of signatures, and then it causes the left to sue because they have money, they'll pay the attorneys, they'll do all the work for us, and it'll help, I think, because one of the things I'm kind of looking at is, we're coming up on the 2026 elections. We're going to have signature gathering going on, and there's been some laws that make it so we can go and watch the verification of signatures on those petitions. And so I'm wondering if we can begin to kind of use that to try to kind of destroy the signature path through the back door, because like we're not able to get them to just completely repeal it. So instead, what we have to do is go after it from this kind of backside by saying like, okay, you gathered signatures, but we were observing the verification and we noticed that there were fraudulent signatures. So we don't actually think you got the requisite number of signatures. We're going to challenge your petition. But if, let's say, one of these left-wing groups comes in and does it on the initiative that comes up, that can actually be helpful because it might set helpful precedent that we can then use to challenge candidate petitions. And like I said, I think there's different ways to begin to tackle this problem so we never have a repeat of what happened in 2024. One is we got to retire all the people involved, and that's going to require full transparency. We're doing that. But the second is we need to shut it down for future candidates. It'll make it much harder for people like, I'm trying to think of, like, someone that gathers signatures. I have to come up with Spencer Cox. He wouldn't be able to win again. If he couldn't gather signatures. Because the reality is in 24, the reason this whole thing happened is because he was having trouble actually gathering signatures because people don't like him. I think they're off put by his mannerisms. I think a lot of people think he's gay and like closeted. And they don't like the weird way he acts kind of emasculated, to go with the theme. He is very emasculated. By both his first lady and first gentleman. Okay, well, we're at time today. I hope today's show was helpful. especially when it comes to the housing issues that we've been dealing with. And so thank you for listening to the Goud Crowd. We are on kmmu.org, and you can catch me every week from Monday from 5 to 7. Sorry, you can catch me on my Twitter handle or X handle at Goud for Utah, at Utah Main Street Media, their X handle, as well as YouTube and Rumble, and then also at kmmu.org. So it's always a pleasure. And from now until next Monday, if you have any tips, if you have any issues you want us to look into, please reach out. Until then, I hope everybody has a wonderful Thanksgiving. Spend time with your families, have a joyous time. And then we will see you again next Monday, and we'll hit right back at it. Thank you very much.